Welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about what really takes to develop processes for great companies, right? When we look at developing a process, I walk through our companies and every department has the process, right? We go through, we write these papers, we write these flow charts and these narratives, and yet we get sloppy and we find ourselves not following them. I think most people are on this call or are listening today can relate to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, outside of the all of the work we've done, that is the case for every small to mid-sized business, right? 100% of them have the same issue.
Yeah, here, not 50%, not
No,
not 70%.
no.
It's 100% of every organization. And my judgment is it's a lot like life, right? There's all kinds of aspects to life, and I may work on one part really, really well, and that gets tuned in, but then it's something else that get moved. I'm constantly working to move things forward in different parts of the business as
Yeah,
well as different parts of my life. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something to pay attention to, right?
yeah. Well, I think if you look at it from the perspective of do I want this to get better, then obviously it's not going to get better by itself. You always need to put in conscious effort to make something better, whether that's your health, your business, your finances, anything. You need to put in the conscious effort. If you're not going to do that, if you keep postponing putting in that effort, or in business hiring someone to put in that effort, it's never going to improve, right? You can just wish for it, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's. I also have a lot of judgment that people come to business and they show up at their business carrying all kinds of drama that doesn't belong in the business, right? People that carry their family life into the business, people that carry their history into the business, people that carry some story that doesn't need to be in the business. And instead of operating a business, they're operating from all of this garbage they brought to the business that day. And I believe that we start to look at it and go, all right, look, I'm going to show up here and really focus. When I'm at work, I'm at work, and I really focus on being there completely, right? Like to fully engage. Now I want to start to go and create those systems. And my judgment is that people need a coach, right? Sometimes I can't see that. Sometimes I can't see that I'm doing that, right? I can't see those behaviors. Talk to me about when you work with companies. How do you help them see that?
So, two things here. Number one, we firmly believe that if you, as the owner, have to be there, have to be committed, have to be focused, have to be available, there's something wrong in the business, right? We've had this discussion over and over and over again, at least 100 times with other businesses. And at the end of the day, they do realize, oh my gosh, if I need to be at my best for this business to function, there's obviously a lot of underlying symptoms, a lot of underlying issues here, right? So, the second thing is with regards to coach. We have had the pleasure to coach over 300 businesses until now, and we've generated for them over $500 million, right? So, from all of that experience, I can tell you that we've noticed coaching is amazing. Having an accountability partner is amazing. Having someone to help you, to guide you, to make you ask the right questions of yourself and everyone else is great. At the same time, I can tell you that what has happened over and over and over again was that I have a conversation with you this week and we agree on three things that you need to do until next week. And then by next week, guess what? Two of those things you haven't done, right? Because your child had issues at the nursery, because your dog, because whatever, because someone in the business, because this client, because all of these excuses, right? And I'm not saying this to be not empathic with these people, right? No, I have empathy, but at the same time, you still paid me, and the week is still off, right? Like the week passed. So instead, what we realized after over 7 years of coaching businesses and over 300 of them, we said, you know what? Instead of me trying to convince you to do this week, many of these things you already know, you pay me the same amount of money and let me do it for you.
Oh,
And so
nice.
then we basically came up with a service that's sort of like secretarial services, or however you want to call it, like admin, or us operating your business. We issue the invoices, we look over the contract, we hire the people, we do the processes, we look at everything, and so on and so forth. We collect on dues and so on. So we started doing this, we started implementing this a while ago. The feedback has been outstanding. Literally, people are telling me, Robert, I swear I just come to the coaching calls just to thank you now for everything you do, because I just want to talk like chit chat, because I need a break. I want to talk, but everything has been great since last week. Your team has been fantastic, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, this is what the real problem is, because this is what data tells us, is that you, Anthony, know what needs to be done in the business. The issue is that you do not have the bandwidth of either time, energy, or both to actually get it done. So you need to delegate it to someone.
It happens all the time, right? Just the never ending. I show up at the office with a task list of 6 things. I leave with 6 things, and now I've added a couple more. Right? It just the
Yeah,
days seem they get there. Having someone like yourself that can come in and actually take some of those things off my plate, and I pay them to do that. Right? I'm essentially going, hey, look, I love, for me, it's about paying for time. Right? If I can hire the
exactly.
right person to work for me who can take time, give me back my time. That's invaluable, right? Where I can focus
Yeah.
on the parts that I'm really great at, right? I bring people in to do things that give me back my time so I can go focus on my areas of genius. And that's, oftentimes it's not in those task oriented items that, the business needs, right? The business needs those to be successful, hunting down payroll, hunting down, looking for employees, the hiring process, right? I ultimately want to be able to see the employees that we're going to hire. But look, putting the ads out there, getting the for initial interviews done, going through, weeding through the minutia of resumes that come in, and now I get to have a kind of a final look at it. Someone's done most of the work for me, and now I can take it down and do those little places where my touch is important for the business, because it's important for me to get to know those things, and I can do that. I can say that for sales. I can say that for hiring. I can say that for execution. Same thing with our team meetings. So I think that's a neat spot. So you guys actually go in and you take those on. Can that be, when how do you assess where they need help?
So, a few things. Number one, you would also not believe the amount of time spent on the small things that you need to do in business. Like, for example, checking your email. Like, for example, scheduling a call. Like, for example, organizing some trip or whatever. Our team does all of that as well. And so when I say our team, I mean you can hire someone internally, it doesn't matter. But basically, imagine I have not had to check my email in, I think, 4 or 5 years. Imagine. And I run 8 businesses at this time. So my portfolio has 8 businesses. I know many people struggle to have one, right? Our portfolio has 8, and our admin team is helping run all of them. And yet I don't need to check my inbox, right? If anything happens, if, let's say I get invited as a speaker to an event, they have the checklist, they have the process. These are the questions you need to ask, right? And then based on the answers, we have follow-up, canned responses, one after the other, right? And then my team just deals with that. I hop on podcasts like this one. I many times I have no idea what this is about until the day of. And on the day of, guess what? My team creates call cards. That's what we call them. In the morning, I wake up, or when I start working, let's say I have 5 meetings. I have 5 call cards. I see, oh, I'm speaking to Anthony. Who's this guy? And then I do some due diligence. I see the company. I see the conversation back and forth. Right? Boom, I'm ready. It's like it was me. Like no one knows. Literally, the system is working so fine tuned that they have full control over my inboxes, over my finances. They pay for stuff. They collect on stuff, and so on and so forth. So we do a lot around that. And so, what I can tell you, what we do the moment we start working with someone is we ask them, what do you hate doing? What do you really don't want to do? Because guess what? Almost all of life and almost all of business is energy management. It's not
Mm.
time management. You have the time. We all have the same time in the day. But some things drain our energy like crazy, and some things give us energy, right? Some things, like when you're operating in your core genius, like you were saying a second ago, you can work for 12 hours a day, no problem.
No
But
problem.
when you
Right.
need to do that, that balance sheet or that proposal or send that email that you don't want to, or make that call that you don't want to, that drains so much that you literally think like, oh my god, I really wish I didn't need to do this, right? That's what we take on first, right? So we ask, what do you hate doing? What do you wish that you would not even see? And then we make that invisible to you. We deal with it even better than you ever had, and then it's done, it's dealt with, and then
But
you
but
just
you
do
know,
whatever you want to do.
so the stuff that gets me, I see happen over and over again with myself and other entrepreneurs is this mentality of and not knowing that I do that, right? Not knowing that I make up these stories that no, I can't train someone to do that. Oh no, I and or I check my email. My email is kind of it's almost like a pacifier, right? I notice my day gets busy and I go check my email and I kind of get lost in my email for a minute instead of dealing with the stuff maybe the stuff I'm uncomfortable doing. Hey, you need to go meet with accounting, right? You need to go figure out what's going on with the finance of that project. It's not going to go away. There's a problem over there. You need to dive in knee deep, and you need to go deal with it. Sometimes I'll go, well, no, I'm busy. I got to go check my, got to go do something, or I got a meeting, or I'm too busy to do that. And the truth is, I've made myself busy to avoid what I don't want to do.
Yes, this happens all the time. And so what we've noticed is that, okay, you go to your inbox and what do you see? You see 20 unread messages, and then you just start reading the messages. Guess what? Whenever I go to my inbox, it's inbox zero. I have nothing to read. Everything is being dealt with. Everything's tagged, replied to, or planned for later, or whatever. All of it is done. So when you go to your inbox and you see, oh, it's zero, right? Then like, oh well, I guess I should do something else that I should actually be doing right now, right? And so this happens all the time. And I want to tell people that are listening that this isn't something that happens to certain people, right? This is something that happens to everyone. Everyone has certain fears, certain things that they're not good at, that they want to avoid, and they do it unconsciously sometimes. So, what we do, because you don't notice your own blind spots, there's a reason they're called blind spots, right?
Okay.
When we come in, you cannot not notice them because now we need to deal with them and we say, okay, this needs to be dealt with. Do you want to deal with it or should we? And the moment you have that option, the entire equation changes because until now, you've been avoiding it because you don't like it. Now that you don't need to avoid it because someone else does it, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I really would like that solved. I really would like someone to talk to accounting, and figure out the books and do this and whatever, right? And the moment you know that is being handled professionally, right, all of a sudden you feel better. And the final thing I'm going to say is with all of those things that all of that language that we have internally, like I can't delegate this, it can't function for me, and so on and so forth. What tends to work in the human psyche is examples. So I don't know if you know, but at one point no one managed to beat the, I don't know, the 4 minute mile or something like that. It was right, like
Yeah.
everyone was
Yeah. Yeah.
running and no one
That's
could
right.
do
That's
a
right.
mile, right? And then one person did it in 3 minutes
And
and
now
whatever,
everybody does it. That happens all the
and
time.
then
Right.
after
Right.
that everyone started doing
It's
it. It's
it's
like,
it's yeah, it's literally the funniest thing. We don't see that. We don't
yeah,
even know that. We
yeah,
it's this mental blind spot or
yeah,
blank spot or I mean, look, before that 4 minute mile got broken, people thought if you ran for your heart would explode.
yeah,
There was literally a physical agreement to that you couldn't break it, right? And mentally that they backed it up and doctors like, no, if you went that fast, your heart's going to explode. And
yeah.
they made up stories about it and they actually lived into that. Now someone breaks it. Now it happens on a regular basis, right? I mean, that's a
Exactly.
crazy, yeah.
Exactly. And so in my case, whenever I tell people that I don't check my inbox, I don't need to check Slack, I don't need to check Skype, I don't need to check anything. All of it is delegated, right? Everything that you would need to check on a daily basis, I have delegated, right? So someone would say, "Wait, how could you allow someone else to represent you?" Well, guess what? I have a system for that. And you can come up with a system for that. Anyone can come up with a
That's
system.
right. That's right.
In our case, we call it in the chairman's office. We have the chairman's office, and in the chairman's office we have rules of engagement. So if someone invites me to a podcast, what do you say, right? If someone invites you to an event, what do you say? If someone wants to sell me something, what do you ask, right? And so on and so forth. All the time. Everything has a rule of engagement. How do we engage in this situation, right? If it's someone's birthday, what calendar do you put it on, right? If we just met someone, what questions do we need to ask so that we can be a little bit more friendly with them? I kid you not. We like even things like clothes, like what are you going to wear, right? Even that you can processize and you can give it to someone. I kid you not, my team tells me, Robert, in this specific company, because they don't have access to every single thing, and they tell me, Robert, please remember to pay yourself today. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. right? I don't even need to remember that. I kid you not. It's like, Robert, please pay yourself today. Like, oh, okay, fine. I'll give myself money all day long, no problem, right? So it's very cool. And then once it works, it just starts working and working and working. And so this is the second thing I want to go into, is that most people have the flawed mental barrier that they say, I am going to work on my processes next quarter or
That's
whatever.
right.
Like, I have
Yeah.
planned to work on it then.
Some
Right?
further time out there, not
Exactly.
now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I will work on it then. There are two issues with that. Number one, you're postponing your dreams, which is never a good idea, right?
That's right.
Tomorrow, Monday, next month, next year, whatever, right? But then number two, you're seeing it as a one time engagement, like one time initiative that you just do. You define your procedures and now they're done, which is flawed. That does not work that way. You define a version zero point 0.1 of a process, something like you babble, 5 steps, step one, step two, step three, whatever, and then you delegate that, and then you get feedback, or you watch someone follow it, and then you improve it. You create a second version, and then you keep doing that over and over. And guess what? Things change. The tools you use change. The industry changes. The everything changes sooner or later. So this isn't a thing that you do in Q4. This is a thing that you'll do in every quarter for the rest of the life of the business if you want to keep growing, keep scaling, and so on and so forth. That's why it helps to delegate it either internally to someone or to an outside team.
Well, yeah, when I go to delegate it, right, I still have some responsibility, right? I give it up. I have someone else do that. Now I got to set the parameters for them, right? My rules of engagement, like you talked about. I got to, all right, here, I'm going to delegate this to you, and now I need you to do this by when, right? So I give them, a task they need to do, clearly define the task, and then a by when date, right? That makes it real. Now it really makes sense for me to make sure that I follow up on that, right? Make sure that I'm pinging and we're following along the way. Cause I've never met anybody who I've worked with who, when I ask them to do something, they're all like, yeah. I got it. I got it. And I walk away and then I come back at some point and it's not quite where I want it, right? They didn't get it. Right. So I find myself noticing that I really got to make sure that when I go to engage somebody, that for me it's all about finding small little lifts, but I can do them really quickly. But if I find a way to engage someone in doing something, engage them. Where are the files I want them? Where do I want them kept? How do I want them delivered? Right. If I can do small little lifts to trigger the engagement process, I get a much better deliverable on the backside. And that it makes it easier for them to be successful because they thoroughly understand what I was asking for.
Two or two and a half things here that I highly recommend anyone listening that have solved this issue for us. Number one, very, very important. Yes, you set the task, the date, by when, and the responsible. And so, oh, by the way, only have one person responsible, not more. Every task has one responsible, not more. Keep that in mind all the time. And then what you do, you give someone the task, and then you ask them, once you told them what they need to do, you ask them to feed it back to you. Okay, now you tell me what you are going to do and how. And now they feed it back to you. And guess what? Almost every single time there's a gap somewhere,
That's
right?
right.
There's a
That's right.
gap like, okay, and how are you going to do that? Oh, well, I don't know. Okay, but why didn't you ask me? Oh, I didn't think about it. Okay, well, think about it now. How are you going to do that? Right? And so have that conversation about the feedback. Let them tell you what they're going to do. Okay, that's number one. Number two, have what we call control keys. So in accounting, they have,
Control keys, right?
yeah.
So control key, I got it. So feedback on what you said, right? Hey, I tell me what I did. Now tell me about control keys.
So control keys are basically they're an accounting term. Accounting has certain control keys to make sure that accounting is going well and they don't miss anything and so on and so forth. So we've implemented control keys in every single department. So the way we do it is we say, this is what you need to do, this is by when, and this is the control key. The control key is, how do I know that you've succeeded at the task? That's the control key. So for example, it's CC me in the email. And I
Mm,
know when I get the email, or BCC me if you don't want me there, right? When I get the email, right, I know it's been sent. Or if you need to write an article, send me the link to the article, to the Google Doc where you wrote it, whatever. I know if I get that link, I click on it as the article, I know it's done, right? Proof, basically. The control key is proof. So that helps so much, because now if you get people used on control keys, you don't even need to ask for updates, because the control key, if you define it, you can check it. And that's the point of a control key. Without a shadow of a doubt, was this done or not? And
So
the
give me an
control key
example.
will
Like,
tell you.
let's do an example one because
Yes,
I work best with an example. So
sure.
all right. So now I have a task, right? So step one was me to communicate what the task is and by when and the responsible party, right? So I've set those
Yes.
three criteria, right? Now I want to establish control key so I don't have to go back because I find myself, I'm like a one-legged paper hanger going back and spinning everybody's plates. I keep making sure they keep rolling. So I don't know if I got this one down at all. So let me learn this one. So if I want to keep their plate spinning, what's the control? How do I establish the control key?
Very, very good question. So basically, let's say you want the salesperson to bring you 10 more leads this week, right?
That's
That's the
right.
goal. That's the outcome. 10 more leads that you've had good conversations with. Okay. The control key is that if I do a specific filter in our CRM by the date and your name, I will see at least 10 new additions if you're using a CRM, right? That's a control key. I can very easily, if you miss the meeting because you're sick today, if you can't report, if I can't make the meeting, doesn't matter. I log in, I check the CRM, I put since our last call to this call, new entries in the tool, and then who's responsible. If I see 10 people, fine, you've done it. You don't need to tell me, right? It's perfect. If I see 5 people, we have a problem, right? So it's so easy to do once you get the hang of it. Basically, a control key is you need to find some way to factually prove that you've done the work, right? Without me asking. I don't need to ask. You have to do this specific thing. So that can be sharing an article, that can be sharing a design, that can be, whatever people do, like, depends on the task, right? So let's say someone needs to fulfill orders or to collect on money, right? Then you need to just look in Stripe or look on the balance sheet, how much was collected and so on and so forth, so you can have the control keys in place, and you know what you need to do in order to have that. If the money isn't there, they didn't do their work. You don't even need to ask them. If the money is there, you can congratulate them. Hey, I noticed the money came in, well done. Do you need my help with anything? They're like, no, 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 Robert, I'm perfectly fine. Right? And then your engagements are now about anything else. They don't feel you micromanage because they know what to do to prove to you that they've done their work. They don't need to tell you. You don't need to ask. You save time asking, they save time telling, and they also feel much more in control, much more empowered to do their work, because now they don't need to, be accountable to you in that way. They just need to fill the control keys.
All right. So number one, step one, I establish what I'm looking for, right? I need you to do X.
Yeah,
But by when, date, right? And
yeah,
who's responsible.
yeah,
Got it. And then I follow up with a way of my control key is finding a way that they can communicate that it's being done without me having to ask. Right,
yeah,
a report I can read. Oftentimes I often set things up so that I can scan them. My request of each team is that I can
yes,
see the health of their team by scanning a report in under 90 seconds. Something I can literally scan through and see, it's oftentimes color coded or something I can scan through and go, all right, great. Here's where we are with these projects. Here's where we are with the budgets for these projects. Here's
yeah.
where we are for the timing for these projects. And here's the health of the employees that are working on those projects. And I can scan that report for each department in whatever format that's going to be in a little bit easier. So I think that is that what you're talking about? Kind of that's the setup.
To some extent. So you missed one step, which is asking them to give you to feed it back to you. Number
Oh,
one,
that's
you
right.
give them the task. Number two, they feed it back to you, and then number three, you agree on the control key. So the reports are great. We have reports as well. However, this is a very important thing. People can write their own report, right? They can lie, they can skew the facts, they can make it look pretty, and so on and so forth. A control key is proof beyond the shadow of the doubt that this happened exactly the way I wanted it. So it's not you telling me you've made the calls. It's me looking into the call making software, making sure that the 100 calls have been made, right? So it has to be proof not you telling me. If you need to tell me, then that's not proof, because at the end of the day, it's like a witness. Okay, but that's not proof. That's a witness, right? So there's a difference. You're asking witnesses to tell you what happened. I'm asking you to get the exact thing of what happened, the proof, the factual proof of what happened.
Got it. Got it. I like that. So if I can see proof that that happened,
Yeah.
I'm always trying to figure that out. I'm not sure I understand how I can make it proof. Just about everything I have, every CRM system, somebody put that in there. They can say they called them, or they say they called the person again, or follow up on a call. But isn't it ultimately their a human putting that in? What's the way to get the proof on it?
Yeah. So this is part of what we help on when we come in. Again, we've already done this 100 times. So we know, as you said, if anything is human input, it can be false, right? They
That's
can
right.
make it
That's right.
up. So what you do, instead of someone being able to say that they emailed them, connect the CRM software to the email address and make it automatically sync, so that if an email goes out, you can see the email going out.
Oh, I
If a
see. I
call
got you. I
is
got you.
made, you can
And
see a
you
real call being made. It was 2 minutes, and here's the recording.
Yeah, or like my accounting team, making sure that every project gets billed in a timely fashion every month, right?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, today's the 29th of the month. I'm going to go have a meeting with accounting here this morning, and I want to be able to go through and make sure that every single project that we have was billed appropriately for the month, that
Mhm.
we're not missing any.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? So,
That's awesome. So awesome. So getting that control key is a way to really get in there and establish it. Establish what I want, by when I want it, communicate that you understand what I want, right? Communicate back your understanding of what I want.
yeah,
Create a control key that has a way for me see reporting without having me to have to go hunt you down to get the information,
yeah,
right? And
yes.
give them some agency in the communication of what they're doing, right? And essentially, the system itself, directs that.
Yes, correct. And I have one more, let's say, piece of advice, if you want to call it, or whatever. But this is based on data. It's not based on, opinion. So if you look at how people work, um, if you want A players on the team, people that you can go on vacation and then the business will still thrive without you there, which is the dream of every entrepreneur or every manager, for that matter. If you want that, stop giving people tasks and start giving them outcomes.
Mm.
Focus on outcomes.
Start
Say,
giving them outcomes. I love that.
yes, exactly. Don't give them tasks. Give them an outcome and let them figure out how they're going to achieve that outcome, right? So when I want, for example, let's say I want our social media to grow. This is a plain example. I'm not going to give someone a task to post 3 times on social media. What I'm going to say, I want 50 extra followers this week. That's what I want. I don't care how you get them. If they're in our target audience, 50 followers, if you need to DM them, post, engage in groups, whatever, I don't care. I care about the outcome. And this gives people so much power, and they give it so much credibility. Uh, I don't know how to say, like they believe in themselves
They
now,
get
right? They're,
agency, right? They
yeah,
get agency
yeah,
into and into their magnificence. I mean, ultimately,
yeah,
I think that's what we're trying to do is we're not trying to create little followers. We're trying to
exactly.
create some people that have some real magnetism, some real effort, and someone that really creates. We want to pull that out of them. All right, so how do you start to coach people into that? How do you start to work with a team to really? So you guys come on board. What do you do to coach that team? Are you on board forever, or are you on board to train the team? Well, how does that all work?
So, in most cases, I try to remove myself from conversations as much as I can, so that sorry, so that I don't need to be there. At the end of the day, people see value in me talking with them and so on and so forth. However, just because I'm the name behind the brand, however, my team is equally competent in doing this. So the important part is of tweaking. Because let's say I tell you this is how to conduct the perfect discovery call. And I kid you not, I give you all of the information in the first meeting, everything. And then what do? You go and have a meeting, a discovery call, you record it, and you do half of what I said, right?
Ah,
And this is reality. This is
all the
reality.
time, every day. It happens all the time.
Exactly. All the time. This is how it works. So then we have another call in which I give you feedback on how you performed. And then next time you'll implement 55%, and next time 60%, and then 65. Eventually, you'll implement 100% of this. Now it's just about making you stick to the fundamentals, which is a thing in itself. It's a challenge in itself because you lose sight of the fundamentals. If I ever lose a deal, which happens very rarely, but if I ever lose a deal, I can trace it back to me not following or skipping a step in our process. I kid you not. Every single time, no exceptions. If I lost a $2 million deal, it's because I did not do X or Y or whatever in the process. And I see it and I'm like, okay, I failed. And this is human nature, right? This is how it works.
That's
So
right.
don't expect anything different from you, and definitely don't expect anything different from your employees, because they're humans. It doesn't matter if you give them the perfect procedure, they're still going to follow it to 70%. That's why it's so important for the procedure to be perfect, because it doesn't matter how good it is, people will still never follow it to the T, or at least, you know, not to the level of quality you would expect, right? Because you're in the business for 10, 20 years, they're in the business for 4 years, right? They many times they are not as good as you're as passionate as you. Still, they can do the work, which is the most important part, because now you can do it at scale, right?
Well, let's talk about, because there's lots of companies that struggle scaling their operations, right? They struggle doing that, and it's my judgment is that's a big part of what causes companies or entrepreneurs to get entrepreneur burnout, right? They try to run around spinning every plate. I've been there, I've done that, and if I want to get to scale, I can't be the one doing this. It has to be, you know, as we expand, I've got to get the organization to organize itself where it's getting done by teams of people or by other people that are they're getting that done. And a lot of times I can't see that. So that's why I feel like when I get a coach or a person, a company like you that can come in and guide me where I can't see those flaws that I'm creating, I think it's really useful. Robert, as you start to, as people are looking for you to do some engagement, right? They want to come to you and find you and say, hey, I'd like you to come look at my company and talk to me about doing work for us. How do they how do they get a hold of you?
So anyone that just Googles my full name, Robert Indries, will literally the first 3 pages of Google should be about me, so it shouldn't be too hard to find.
You are
But
famous out there.
I have the my full name as a .com as well. So anyone that wants to engage with me in any way, they can literally just email me at robertindares.com, mention the podcast in the title or in the body of the email, whatever, and then my team will tell me, and then I promise to reply personally.
Well, Robert, I love having you on here. As you guys continue to break through more and more organizations, I think your techniques are what we need to hear, right? Entrepreneurs need to hear this. We need to hear that, go through these processes and really, there's where the entrepreneur, as much as their team needs coaching or the team needs support, we need coaching and seeing some of the things that we're causing our businesses to fail, where we're causing it to happen, where we have problems scaling our operations, and why we're committed to our old ways of doing it, and without bringing someone bright like you in who helps my organization change, it's a tough spot to be in. Robert, I'm so grateful to have you on here. Thanks again for being here. As always, listeners, if you have any questions, anything you want to talk about with Robert or myself, please put it down in the comments. I dare you to give me something good to get Robert back out here to answer your questions for you. I'd be grateful for all the listeners, and thank you as always for listening.